mother fox carries her cub in her mouth as she flees from a hunting dog. She crosses a forest and a mountain until she reaches a farm. There, she hides her baby near a fence, gently nuzzles him, and then runs off, just before being shot. An owl named Big Mama finds the little fox and feels sorry for him. She decides to ask her friends, Dinky the finch and Boomer the woodpecker, to help her find someone to care for the cub. They come up with the idea of going to Widow Tweed's house, a kind farmer who lives nearby. When the old lady steps outside, the birds place her drying blanket over the fox to catch her attention. The widow lifts the blanket and finds the frightened fox underneath. She says, "Oh, you poor thing. You've lost your mama. Don't worry, I'll take care of you." She decides to adopt him. As she bottle feeds him, she names him Tod and hopes his company will ease her loneliness. Meanwhile, her neighbor, the hunter Amos Slade, arrives with a gift for his dog Chief, a hound puppy named Copper. He tells Chief that Copper may be small now, but he'll grow up soon and asks him to look after him. Widow Tweed is happy to have a new member of the family, but she has chores to do, so she tells Tod to go out and play. Tod happily runs off, and upon seeing the birds, Dinky and Boomer, thinks they might want to play with him and ventures into the forest. There, he sees the two birds unsuccessfully trying to catch a caterpillar. Frustrated, Dinky blames Boomer for losing their breakfast. Boomer blames him back, and they start arguing. Tod had wanted to play, but walked away disappointed. Then he spots a butterfly and begins to chase it near Amos's house. There, Chief is teaching Copper how to be a hunting dog. Copper smells something strange. Chief thinks it's just the food Amos is cooking, but Copper isn't convinced and decides to investigate. He follows the scent to a log where Tod is chasing the butterfly. When the little fox asks Copper what he smells, the hound discovers it's Tod and lets out a howl. Tod asks why he howled, and Copper explains that they're supposed to do that when they find what they're tracking. They introduce themselves, and Tod invites Copper to play hide and seek. Tod runs off while Copper counts. The two youngsters laugh and play, forming a bond. Big Mama watches, surprised but happy to see a fox and a hound becoming friends and playing together. Suddenly, Amos arrives, angry that Copper ran off, and drags him back to his barrel. But later, Tod returns and calls for Copper to come out and play. Copper, taking advantage of Chief being asleep, sneaks out and runs off with his friend. The fox and the hound have a great time. Tod tells Copper he's his best friend, and Copper says the same. Tod asks if they'll always be friends, and Copper answers, yes, forever. So far, we've seen that when Tod and Copper met, they became friends naturally, without prejudice or fear. They have no idea that, according to the rules of their world, they're supposed to be enemies. Their friendship is born from the innocence of childhood, where they're not yet aware of the differences that adults will eventually teach them to notice and fear. All they feel is the excitement of making a new friend to explore, play, and share adventures with. We were all like them once, open to the world, unafraid of differences, capable of forming friendships that, sadly, often fall apart once the world teaches us to see things differently. Soon we'll see what happens to these two. Amos realizes that Copper has escaped again and angrily calls for him. Copper returns to his barrel, but this time Amos ties him up. When Tod visits the next day, he finds Copper tied. Copper explains that his owner told him to stay home and that it's no fun. Tod suggests they play right there, but Copper warns that Chief can be really grouchy. Tod sneaks up to the barrel where Chief is sleeping and is startled by his size and teeth. Suddenly, Chief wakes up and chases Tod, scaring the chickens. Amos storms out, furious, and also chases Tod, trying to shoot him. But Tod manages to take shelter with Widow Tweed. The old lady disarms Amos, who, even angrier, accuses her fox of stealing his chickens. She doesn't believe him and says Tod wouldn't hurt anyone. Still furious, Amos warns that if he sees the fox on his property again, he'll shoot, and this time he won't miss. As winter sets in, Amos loads his traps and rifle into his truck. It's hunting season, and he's decided to teach Copper how to hunt during the cold months. He takes his dogs, Chief and Copper, into the woods. Meanwhile, Big Mama explains to Tod that his friendship with Copper can't continue because Copper is going to become a hunting dog and will do what he's taught. But Tod doesn't want to believe it. He insists that Copper is his best friend and trusts he'll never change. Time passes, and both Tod and Copper grow up. Copper becomes strong and starts to enjoy hunting. When spring comes, Amos and his dogs return home with a truck bed full of fox pelts. Back at their barrels, Copper feels proud for tracking the foxes so well, but Chief tells him that's not enough. To be a real hunter, he has to hate them. As Tod and Copper grow older, the influence of the adults around them begins to reshape their friendship. This is where social conditioning, the rules and ideologies we absorb from society, starts to play a key role in their lives, shaping how they see the world and how they behave in ways they never imagined as children. Over time, what was once a beautiful friendship begins to turn into what looks like an irreparable rivalry. On one hand, Copper is being trained by his master and by Chief not just to track and hunt foxes, but to hate them, as Chief tells him. Copper begins to see foxes as something to despise, pursue, and destroy. But this shift in Copper doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process that develops as he grows. That's how social conditioning works in real life. Ideas and beliefs are planted little by little, growing over time, often without the person realizing it until they become part of their very identity. Without noticing, Copper has begun to internalize the belief that foxes, like Tod, are his target, his enemy. And slowly, that belief starts to overshadow the memories of their friendship. This shows us how the place where we grow up and what we're taught can shape us to see the world in a certain way, even if it goes against what we once felt or believed. Copper wasn't born hating Tod, he was taught to. In the film, they're a fox and a hound, but they could easily represent any groups of people set against each other. The truth is, no one is born hating others. It's something we learn, something taught and reinforced through repetition and experience. It's heartbreaking to see how the differences society imposes can divide people who, in essence, have no real reason to hate each other. This raises the question, how much of our attitude toward others truly belongs to us? Or, like Copper, have we simply been taught to see certain groups as enemies just because someone told us we should? Tod is happy to see his old friend and goes to visit him while Chief and Amos are asleep. Copper is glad to see Tod, but warns him that he shouldn't be there. They could both get in trouble. Tod only wants to know if they're still friends, but Copper says those days are over. Now, he's a hunting dog. Just then, Chief wakes up. Tod runs from the yard and hides in a woodpile. Trembling, he watches Chief and Amos go by. Copper's sharp nose leads him to the pile. He tells Tod he doesn't want to see him get hurt, and that he'll let him go this time. Then he misleads Chief and Amos. Tod escapes onto a high train trestle, but Chief corners him, blocking his path. At that moment, a fast train barrels through. Tod ducks just in time to avoid it, while Chief is struck and falls into the river, breaking his leg. Angry about what happened, Copper and Amos blame Tod for Chief's accident and swear revenge. It's painful to see how, as in the film, the ideas and beliefs about the other became a self-fulfilling prophecy. The dogs chased Tod, and in trying to escape, he caused Chief to fall, convincing Copper that what he'd been told about foxes was true and making him swear vengeance. This also led Tod to believe what Widow Tweed had warned him about. That's how cycles of violence and resentment form, feeding hatred and division, resentment that won't stop unless someone chooses to break it. This theme of learned hatred and racism reminds me of the experiment conducted by teacher Jane Elliott. She ran an experiment with her third-grade students to teach them about racism and segregation and how they affect people. The results were astonishing. Jane divided the class into two groups, one of children with blue eyes and the other with children who had brown or non-blue eyes. After separating them, she told the class that the blue-eyed children were cleaner and smarter than the others. She then made the brown-eyed kids wear distinguishing collars to be easily identified and banned them from using the water fountains, playing with blue-eyed kids, and more. They were labeled the inferior group. The blue-eyed kids received preferential treatment from the teacher, while the others were treated harshly. Brown-eyed students were punished for behaviors that were overlooked in blue-eyed kids. Jane Elliott was shocked by how quickly her students changed. In just a short time, the blue-eyed children became arrogant, while the brown-eyed children grew timid, even those who used to be the most outgoing in class. But what surprised the teacher most was how their academic performance changed. The blue-eyed children improved their grades and were suddenly able to complete reading and math exercises that had previously been too difficult. Meanwhile, the brown-eyed children began to struggle with questions that used to be easy for them. During the first day of the experiment, the blue-eyed children used their new status to mistreat others with hurtful and hostile comments. The teacher noticed that within just 15 minutes, children who had once been kind, cooperative, and thoughtful had become mean, cruel, and discriminatory. What happened on the second day of the experiment will leave you speechless, but we'll get to that a little later. Amos storms into the widow's house, furious, and tells her about Chief's serious injury and his plan to get rid of Tod. But the widow stops him. Realizing Tod is no longer safe, the next day she takes him into the forest and releases him into a wildlife reserve. As she lets him go, she sings to him, "Now there's nothing left but to say goodbye forever, but happy memories will never fade." She gives him one last hug, then walks away in sorrow. Tod is scared and alone. It begins to rain. While the other animals run to their warm homes, Tod has nowhere to go. He finds a cozy burrow, but it belongs to a grumpy badger who kicks him out. Luckily, a kind porcupine invites him to stay with him. That night, Amos discovers the widow released Tod into the reserve, and he plots revenge. He begins teaching Copper how to use a trap. The next morning, Tod wakes up, gets pricked by the porcupine's quills, stumbles, and ends up back in the badger's burrow. The badger scolds him again. Tod tries to apologize, but the badger dismisses it as excuses. The porcupine tries to defend Tod, but the badger snaps at him too and insists Tod leave. Saddened, Tod walks away, feeling more alone than ever. The following day, Big Mama the Owl goes looking for Tod and finds Vixie, a young fox, and a friend of hers. The two spot Tod and feel sorry for him. Vixie remarks that he looks really sad. Big Mama tells her he was left there all alone. They decide to cheer him up, and Big Mama has an idea. She tells Vixie to step into the sun to look her best, then introduces her to Tod. At first, Tod tries to impress Vixie by catching a trout, but he fails miserably and ends up making her laugh. Embarrassed and hurt, he lashes out at her, calling her a silly girl and a featherbrain. Vixie, offended, tells him to grow up. Big Mama steps in and tells Tod he shouldn't speak to Vixie like that. She sings to him, encouraging him to stop pretending and showing off, and instead be himself. She also suggests that kindness begets kindness. Taking her advice, Tod makes peace with Vixie. She then helps him adapt to life in the forest. She shows him around and lets him stay with her. Neither of them had ever been so happy. They begin to develop a romantic bond. But the very next day, the vengeful Amos and Copper illegally enter the wildlife reserve to hunt Tod. Amos finds a shadowy path near a pond and sets 3 traps, hiding them under a layer of leaves. At dawn, Tod and Vixie emerge from their den, happily chasing each other through the woods. When they reach the path with the hidden traps, Vixie senses danger and refuses to go any further, but Tod presses on. She warns him to be careful. As he walks, Tod becomes nervous. He steps on a trap and, hearing Amos cock his rifle, quickly jumps back. Luckily, he avoids the traps and takes off running with Vixie as gunshots ring out and Copper gives chase. Tod buys her time to escape and waits for Copper to catch up. When the Hound approaches, Tod growls to distract him. After a brief clash, Tod races back to Vixie's hiding spot with Copper right behind him. Tod gets in safely, but Copper is too big to follow and begins clawing and scratching at the entrance. Tod and Vixie try to escape through the back, but Amos blocks their path and points his rifle at them. Unable to get a clear shot, he lights a match and sets fire to a pile of straw, trapping them inside. He stands with Copper at the front, waiting to shoot. Vixie coughs and tells Tod she's scared and that they're trapped. But Tod assures her this is their only chance. They charge through the flames as fast as they can, leaving Amos stunned. They climb a mountain near a waterfall while Amos and Copper pursue them all the way to the top, where Tod and Vixie cross a fallen log to escape. At the summit, Amos assumes Tod and Vixie are hiding behind a bush, but suddenly he and Copper startle a massive grizzly bear from its slumber. Amos shoots and wounds the bear, which retaliates, knocking him down a ravine. He loses both his hat and rifle, which land far out of reach. As he tries to get away, his foot gets caught in one of his own traps. Copper steps in to protect his master, bravely attacking the bear. Amos struggles to break free while Copper fights the bear. The battle continues until the bear flings Copper to the ground, leaving him unconscious. Hearing Copper's cries, Tod turns back and nearly watches his friend die. In a split second, he leaps in and tackles the bear, dragging it to an old bridge above the waterfall. The bear smashes the bridge, and both fall into the water below. The bear is presumed dead, while Tod manages to swim to shore. Despite everything, Tod didn't let hatred or a thirst for revenge control him. He chose not to give in to the hate others tried to instill in him. In honor of the friendship they once shared, he chose to save Copper. This act broke the cycle of bitterness that had built throughout the story and threatened to consume them both. And in doing so, it made Copper question everything he thought he knew. After all the lessons he was taught and the conditioning he received, Tod was still, at his core, the same friend he had always known. Let's see how he responds. Copper approaches Tod as he lies beside the lake, stunned by his bravery. Just then, Amos finally frees his leg and raises his rifle at Tod, but Copper defies all expectations and steps in front of Tod to protect him. After a tense moment, Amos lowers the weapon and tells Copper it's time to go home. As they leave, Copper glances back and smiles at Tod, knowing that even though a fox and a hound can't live side by side, they will always be friends. Back home, the widow takes care of Amos, wrapping his leg in a cast, while Chief and Copper rest. Before falling asleep, Copper remembers the day he first became friends with Tod. And sometimes, on warm summer nights, Tod and Vixie climb a hill near the woods where they can see Copper's house. As Tod watches his friend, the breeze carries echoes of two young voices. Copper, you're my best friend. And you're mine, Tod. And we'll always be best friends. Always. Tod and Copper never returned to the carefree friendship of their youth. Both were forever changed by their experiences. But this final moment reminds us that despite everything, respect and compassion can endure. Though they couldn't be exactly who they once were, they were never meant to be enemies either. This ending leaves us with a glimmer of hope, that despite the hatred and division surrounding us, there's always a chance to choose a different path. One that values humanity and connection over imposed differences. Love and friendship can prevail when we choose to see beyond what we've been taught to fear and hate. And what happened on the second day of Jane Elliott's experiment? The roles were reversed. The blue-eyed children became the inferior group, while the brown-eyed children took over as the dominant ones. To understand the impact, consider this. On the first day, when the brown-eyed kids were labeled inferior, it took them 5.5 minutes to complete a phonics card exercise. But the next day, as the superior group, they finished it in just 2.5 minutes. According to Jane Elliott, the only thing that changed was their new superior status. The kids explained that the first day they were slower because they were wearing identifying collars. Similarly, when it was the blue-eyed children's turn to wear the collars, their performance also dropped. They said they couldn't stop thinking about the colors they were wearing. And on that second day, with the roles flipped, the students fully embraced their new positions. The blue-eyed kids, who had been arrogant the day before, now appeared shy and insecure. The brown-eyed kids, now in the dominant role, became proud and overconfident. The results of the experiment showed just how quickly children can learn to discriminate, and how prejudice can lead to frustration, broken friendships, and harmful behaviors. At one point, a girl even suggested the teacher keep a ruler on her desk in case the brown-eyed kids acted up. Another striking incident occurred when two boys got into a fight on the playground. When the teacher separated them and asked what had happened, one explained that the other had insulted him by calling him brown eyes, so he hit him. By the end of the experiment, as the teacher and students reflected on what they had experienced, they shared their thoughts and insights. One child remarked that they gained nothing from wearing a different color. In just one day, Jane Elliott showed that racism is something we learn. The most powerful part of her experiment was how quickly the children believed what she told them, just like they trust what their parents teach them, or, as in the film, what Widow Tweed and Amos taught the fox and the hound. This experiment, much like the film, shows just how easy it is to convince children that some people are better or worse than others. The moment they were told that one group was superior, prejudice, exclusion, and even absurd justifications began to emerge, even though many of the kids had been friends before the experiment. The way others looked at them shaped the way they saw themselves. One of the most striking comments came from a child who said that wearing the assigned color made him feel like he was in prison and someone had thrown away the key. But these dynamics play out in our society every single day. Many people face these same kinds of prejudice and discrimination regularly because of the color of their skin, their gender, religion, class, or ethnic background. If we want to change these attitudes and break this cycle of hate, we have to start with education at home. While relationships can be shaped and even twisted by outside forces, the choice of how we respond to those pressures still lies within us. How we treat others is always up to us. So let's reject hate and ignorance. Let's choose empathy over prejudice and be an example of respect and compassion in a world that too often tries to divide us.